Kalo Jawa Lana Nebo Lado Menon Jambo Sanje Jonde Bejawa Shata Dobo No Shanse Chodo Joso Jewo Hanse Kuni Tsuwa Chetande Sajen De Na Kombo Debo Mane Jiden De Na Joje So De Tse Gyabo Joha Chate Nanda Guma Jodo Zozo Yeshe Jazo Sejenabo Chaba Jiden Sona Nangewa Gubo Chuni Chula Chate Tenjo Denbo Zhemin Da Ye Jo Senduo Zhabo Chula Chate Dere Jeda Seva Sama Je Nyame Chuje Chula Chate Guangbo Tuje Chedenbo Dangje Chenpe Denbo Sana Yede Jazo She Dejen Shela Chate Taben De Chanje Wanje Gebe Geson Dejo Jeda Denda Chuje Mo Shenje Chula Chate 这年正月那样的老婆当先给当婆一点点，给点那样相思，对吧？这样么叫给我别说说话，让给三年用手的，天天上街的不。干嘛着的毛面到，就么生活就不。面老路到真道不，都是就能得到。上当的月堂起在佛爷，高空到你全觉着的。高当那当七月老主，随便说的着我哟。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Ultra Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of a lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell on the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom. And have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasastra should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Roso kyunla buje da zi yin la zhu ji yang de song. Zhu da jie zhu ni mo ni long de jie jia zhu zhu zi jin. Ma re min zi dong ge nyung gu jin ni jun zi ri zhu nang. Dene da jie sa jie da zi yin de li zo jia zi du yin gu. Jaro judan juni jinri dali min jobe yana de ara bazana de ara bazana de ara bazana de sede juje chera gaze Dali dimu mi bara se ne, kada dinju shun lo lo ba ye, lo jo bo be no, zo do ya zo ya ju, shu ye je o ya me o ya do, do ya re o ya ro ya ni o 多觉千波的心，多觉正，就在的罗波当那罗波，边觉中边波当阿的相。娘的心路就能所我的，上波多面一年当着的，求的的月的当着别的，这个个上这年三年波，要紧是别就能所我的，要有面兄弟路中道，到我这波这边过着去。三界观众宝宝要子说，大摩大愿解了说我的，协助当地中央话的上，高等的别面光中对的，念就那些过去送了说，高等那么那那说我的，看见学的自己做我。我到这边，我说接早节，老我这边到不开主节，要是就把接了说我的，接我跟着接送跟的老妈多节长，好了，刚的些年最重的，就当天幕我住正在边。这些老妈能拿说我的，让将说着跟了大爷们，给上他把这边就我就，这边这边大概这把爷，现在新年能拿说我的，叫我跟着养到那么大，这边就别了老学。萨达朗杰有的少做的，多觉将给过，念头修三界修当作界修当那，想求不多多年就所见，老给姐姐姐别做那见，绕了平些三界诸佛修三界就。所见胶囊囊，将诸佛度当年教子，老给姐姐姐别错那见，到了平些三界诸佛修三界就，所见胶囊囊，将诸佛度当年教子，老给姐姐姐别错那见，到了平些三界诸佛修。哎，这是，呀，当然这个两个七兄弟的个人让给三年用是的，真的上帝点吧也是，这我呢得来多，他可是么个人呢呀，让给三级的对嘛头而已呢，你他进来的几个是呀，那说了操那这么多年，你修了刚刚的人家可是呀那样，让给三的用是对土眼睛呢，你得了把里去对起，我呢有对起人吧。de sanje je temba se de ji yin se de ne shwa de ji se de ko ji de ren do chue se de shwa ra shwa se de ji de ne ji xie me xie ke chas ke re mo do rang ge sen de tu be de ne ga che chue de ren do
The most crucial part of our practice, the crucial result of one's practice is to subdue one's mind. This is all about the practice of Dharma. So it is through the subjugation of one's mind, one will be able to achieve what we call happiness, which is the real happiness. not the kind of happiness that we normally consider as happiness, which is more on the pleasurable, sensational, level, but rather it will really lead oneself to achieve a real happiness. This can only be done through the subjugation of one's mind. So therefore, Buddha's teaching is what we call Shiva, which is a pacifier, which pacifies one's negative state of mind, and it is through the pacification of one's mind, one will be able to achieve what we call genuine happiness.
인산에 당어 쪽에 랑게 세는 때는 산제 땜바 인세네 상제 아니 되게 산제데 산제 땜바데 땜바 보이네 땜바 두배 on보대지 능원에지 랑게 되게 나가데 미바다 대바든 제고 반에 가서 지 삼바데서 떠서 보도 베데 top 시제 찍고 있던나 센지데 뒤도면도 대바당 되게 삼바다 저와는 삼바다 흘려서 봐 인자네 되게 지 땜바 두배 on보예 저베네 지 랑레지 나마나지 지라데 네 되게 나가래 요여 삼베도 대바지 제 근데 라다라냐게 사제데 집어지장지 대화되지 능면 되고 집안에 봐서 지 카사제 많이 봐 근데 소소 집어 거바데 가래기 전에 집어 거고에 나서 지도와 등저지 약간 마데 집어지장이 단다 이 연다바 요소도 나시 준비 걸어 강연 트레이닝 선제를 아니 사유 걸어 선제를 단다 담을리게 내가 되게 돈을 강연을 선제 강연을 집이 강연을 개 강연을 매이나 때문에 지 추는 시바 찍고지 말아요 강연 전은 다 되는 게 전전에 돼도 그래서 하나게 되지 개기 되지 제토로 전화 상이게 삼발지 인제도 자생도 쇼좀 용도해야지 아니면 받은 저지 용도 된다라 아니 게 저지게 된다라 인체되지 아주 그것을 보고 진짜 저기다 생이게 소화질에 된다라 이놈이 받대스 저기다
So now, how do we this unruled mind can be pacified? It is not just because we complain ourselves, my mind is not subdued. Well, it's not going to help us. So now here is, how do we really subdue one's mind? This is the question that one should always ask. Instead of saying that the mind is not being pacified, but rather one should look for a means for pacifying one's mind. So here now, therefore, the teachings of the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, is the one that is a perfect tool for pacifying one's mind, or subduing one's mind, in other words. It is thus we find at the end of the praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, the part of reciting the verse of the sutra, where it says, subduing one's mind is the teachings of the Dharma, right? So now, so it is therefore at this point, who teaches this Dharma or the instructions of subduing one's mind is Buddha Shakyamuni. Let's visualize Buddha, who actually teaches us how to subdue one's mind with the genuine faith and try to shape our motivations, because it is very important while receiving the teachings. Shaping one's motivations is something that really makes us a suitable vessel for receiving the teachings. So therefore, shape one's motivations and relax and remain in a very relaxed manner. One's mind should be very relaxed, not being in a very tense situation. So with this, one visualizes, with this motivations, and one visualizes Buddha Shakyamuni before oneself in the space, and then oneself is being in their presence, surrounded by all other sentient beings who have a similar wish as we do to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So it is not only just a mere word of just saying, may all sentient beings be happy and free from suffering and so on, but rather, try to really, have some kind of, the genuine feeling of yourself that how wonderful it would be if I can make something to for some contributions to free those beings from sufferings and so on. So we see that there are many. We don't really have to go far and just look for someone who's undergone sufferings. We could see that someone who is undergoing suffering in this cold weather, and sometimes people who are under individuals who are going suffering under the very heat weather conditions. And then not only that, but also within this world, if you look at the situations, how many of beings who are trapped inside the piteous situations, and they are piteously crying out for help. So think about all those sentient beings, and think about all their problems and beings who are trapped within this problematic situations. It is not just for, so therefore now think about, my sole purpose of receiving this teaching is not to benefit myself, but also for the benefit of all of the sentient beings. With this motivations of compassion and sense of caring for other beings, and try to cultivate a very strong sense of feeling within yourself, and then take it couple of minutes to meditate on it.
Ai, 다 들으게 교노 치바지냐네. 컨센버샤 이치. 네 죄네. 네 상조랑데 쳔모. 상조랑제 봐.
Sorry. Okay, so with this extraordinary cultivation motivations, the teachings we are receiving is the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment.
아, 되지. 다 들으게 상조랑제는 봐서나. 아니 제법 추군 쯤바 땜비신 제법이 침보세네. 아니 추에데 콘사마 임비 된다라 동보 가르쳐 버려서나. 니 제법보데 수련 제법보다는 유된 가른도 다 그래서 가도 되네.
So the first then, which begins from the first important outlines as usual, it is the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as noble source. Now, whether the teachings the teaching that one is receiving is authentic or not. It depends on the quality of the authors. So therefore, importance of reflecting one's mind upon the qualities, the spiritual quality, particularly spiritual quality or the realization of the author.
다 된적인 제법벌라시 아니 다지 제보하는 제법벌도 서로에 서는 저거나 아니 알레 동보 뭐네잖아 추되게 죄사 가리인 바 시에네 아니 죄사 때문에 라마 간절해서 신주지 잖아요나 소모다지 제시 년에 신로 주주바 손 지도 되게 아니 김보 댄샤도 지리 아니 주바 손보데 주부 강로 도사데 덤바 투병보 아니 되는 자가지 변도 아니 되는 배제 아니 개바 첨보 아니 되네 지게나는 뭐 아니 이제 죄사 사이라면 봐도 아니 고송 도저인데 산주에 셔봐 나와이 저거 담바이 주는 요 저래스 나나 동치고 쉬지 고할래도
So here now, speaking about the author of the teachings. So now, first of all, in order to convince oneself of the authenticity of the teachings that is given by the authentic author, is to reflect one's importance of reflecting one's mind upon the subject matter of the teachings. And when it comes to the subject matter of the teachings, for instance, the great teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment that we're receiving right now, encapsulates the teachings, the lineage teachings, all three lineage teachings, which is the lineage of profound view, lineage of extensive deeds, the lineage of blessed practice. And all of them are encapsulated within these teachings. So if we were to trace these teachings, it can be traced all the way back. It can be traceable all the way back to the teachings of the Buddha himself. And then such teachings are then transmitted to his Buddha's followers, such as great Indian masters and the masters of the great masters of the Tibet, and all the way to one's own root guru.
토마 기신에 텐션에 송주지 제부 마타바도 취식에 아니 라운드 쇼지 제상에 저래서 라나 거대로.
So now the next outlines, which is the showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings. So with this, now to show the respect to such teachings, again here, the importance of reflecting upon the whatever the teaching that is given, the subject matter of the teachings of the text, which teaches us the actual subject matter of these teachings is the profound view of emptiness and the bodhicitta. And so so now such a teachings given by this Lama Tsongkhapa is something that really serve as a synopsis of entire practice, beginning from the practice of guru devotion all the way to the state of unity or the state of complete enlightenment.
다마 추원이다 디베출은 시작다셔요. 세계대니 단지에 다 단다이 가서 결론 줘봐 나게 전화 메디 또 고대와네 다래 텔레지와시나 인디싱 가서 아니 티제 내주저서 게 말에 게제네 저 티제 좀 가서 님바 두 bomba서 다 먹어야지. 아니 저희 사지 제바되나 아니 런치 자와 신년 덴비체다 때는 로치다 제인을 많이 세대니 중앙에라 하니 제대데
How to listen to these teachings in which the both teachings and its authors are great, which will then be followed by the two other outlines, how to rely on the teachers, which is the root of one's spiritual path, and how the students train their mind after having relied on authentic teacher.
Tā tēnā lō chētā chēngi rīpa lā nī, tē yu tēnā nīmbō nēmbī shī kyūwa tā, nīmbō chētā nēmbī sū nē chē, tā tōmbō chē. Tā nīmbō chētā nēmbī sū tēlā nī, nā chē nā chā lā ngē pā chētā, nīmbō nē chē ngō chē. Tā tōmbō chē sā, tā nīmbō nē chē ngō lā sōng, chūbī chūngā tā tēmō yā lā chē rīpa nyā sā nē chē, chūbī chē tā nīmbō, chūbī chēmbī lā chē rīpa nyā sā nē chē chē, tā tōmbō nī chē sā. Tā chūbī chēmbī lā chē rīpa nyā sā nē chē lā sōng, tē chē nō chūbī gō, sēn chē khōnā tēmbā, sēn tē chē tā chūbī sū, sēn chē nē shū pā lō chē chē, tā tōmbō nī chē sā. Tā sēnchē nā shūpa lō chī lā sōng, sēnchē nā lōpa lō gu bī jēn sēn, lōpa rē rē wā lā lōpa sāngchē mā rūpa tēmbā, lōpa lō bī rīmbā nī shē bā āchī. Tā tōmbā nī rē sā, tā lōpa lō bī rīmbā nī shē bā lā nī, tēpā chēmbā chē lā lō chē tā, chē bā tō lō jī tēpā lā lō chē yu chē. Tā tōmbā lā sōng, shā sēnchē lōpa lā lō tē chā wā, chā nē chē sē dāmbā sōng, sō nē chē tā nī bī chū yu chē, tā tōmbā nī rē sā. Tā sō nē chē tā nī bī chē lā nī, kāna mā sōng, kāna lō bī shē, tē lōpa nā dī sē, tē lō bī rīmbā āchī. Tā tōmbā nī rī sā, tā tē lā lō bī rīmbā lā nī, shōpa chī lā lō zē tāng, chī pā tā pā chā tā mā nī lā lō zē chē. Tā tē yā nō yō ngā tsō ngā nī, shāng chū jī jē sēn jē nē, shōpa chī lā lō zē tā, chī pā tā pā chā tā mā nī lā zē nō ngā nī, chī pā tā pā chā tā mā nī lā lō zē tē chē, kā sā pā pā.
So at this point, we are on the teachings of last two perfections, teachings on last two perfections, or the teachings of the last two deeds of the bodhisattvas, practice of the bodhisattvas.
되지. 다 파시 타만이라 같이 되는 그 사티도 좀 많은데. 신나다 라도지 편지. 대니 땡인지 괜히 디시지 때마 신나라도 뭐 아니 대니가 강도be 이제 아니 고랭에 봐 소설하지 당아주 사진가 봐 타마 아니 소설하지 생각되는도 그 생각도 사제다 아니 소설하지 세대네 아니 신나라 가들하고 그래 아니 라도나 가들하고 그래 대니 손들을 하지 가려야 돼 손도.
So now the teachings on the serenity and insight, which has 6 outlines, but we are on the under the fifth outlines, which explains about how to be certain about their order.
당연히 로긴다. 소실로질라 송, 신내라로지, 나동라로지, 대니 송들이 나지 어치. 동보라 송, 신내지 초된바, 델라 때네 신내 강비추, 강배 신내 태도 어송도.
So now let's read through the text. So this page 28. How to turn in each, where it says how to turn in each. So this has 3 sections: how to turn in meditative serenity, how to turn in insight, and how to unite them. And how to turn in meditative serenity. This section has 3 parts. I've been relying on the practitioners for meditative serenity, how to cultivate serenity on that basis, the measure of successful cultivation of serenities.
다 소인 동이 동부 신내지 초된바데 가르치는 신내 초된 거에서 나나 동부내에서도 년조배 통마 대신 유도 신내 주바 주비 주 신내지 초된바 오 손도 신내지 초된바 서서나 네 간지 가르치는 신내 초된 거잖아 얘도 대신 유도 주바 세대 신내 주비전라 강에면 봐 아니 조바 신내 주주 된다라 신내지 주된 거 yes.
So now first it says relying on the preconditions for meditative serenity. Here it says at the outset the yogi should rely on the preconditions for serenity, which make it possible to achieve serenity quickly and comfortably.
당가서 신내 주고에서나 되게 소소게 나오면 되는 게 두샤에 세치면도 될로 동부 차천장 거야지 도와 되게 개절해.
So now here he talks about we cannot just simply say, well, I'll just sit in my room and I'm going to practice meditative or practice serenity. This is not this will not happen. This is not how it's going to be productive. So therefore it requires a precondition for meditative serenity. So one should have the preconditions and understand the preconditions of meditative serenity, for meditative serenity. Sorry.
다시 내 루비 메텔라 차ချင်း가르고르 가르 주 가르 참고도스나 데라 줄레 소도 아니 팀비유나 네바 네 소도 또 알레 질 줄레 팀비유나 네바네 연테 나다 뎀바 뎀비 유테 세글로 소바 세메바네 하와다 진zel라 소비 주 몽보 주 미세바다 달라 소바 메네베 네자와 네 메제위 사이엠베 사자와 수트린 다바다 다와춘비 조자와 조자와다 뎀베 조자와지 수트린바 조단 뎀베 조자와지 녀모지오 몽보 메진 스모 추달레 레바 추다 충예 레바 뎀바오 도데젠레 로데 칸투 루비 레바니에다 네자다 사상와도 조자다 내조데 요제데 시에소소 소에데 아니 조기노 동보데레.
So here now, what are the preconditions for meditative serenities? They are of six type. They are of six, in other words. The first, it says, dwelling in the appropriate area. Right? It says the area should have 5 attributes. Easy access, so that necessities such as food and clothing may be readily obtained. Then next, being a good place to live, where there are no wild beasts such as predators, no enemies, etc. And third is being on a good piece of ground, in that it does not breed sickness. Then fourth, offering good companionship insofar as your companions are ethically disciplined and like mind. And then the last one is being well situated, in as much as there are not many people about in the day and a little noise at night. So Maitreya's ornament of the Pamayana Sutra states, the intelligent practice in a place which is accessible is a good place to live, offers good ground and good companions, and has requisites for comfortable yogic practice.
도대쟁이데 페나 레파니에다 세데 레파니에바 생이들라 아니 세고로 소바 레파니에바 세나 소오레스 근데르기 레파니에바 세데 세고데 녀라와지면은 다 창는 요구마레 데 세고데 녀라와 마이나 지 창데서는 양 창지네 표시로 배경들 지고라 근데르기 개체 마이 바제 레파니에바 세데 세고로 소바 녀라와장 아니 자제 야본 잠바 대거나 아니 강이 비서거데 아니 디젤라 소바예니 로바트는 마인바 아니 지 수단 템베게 세진 바데라 아니 레바니에 바서 고고를 손도.
So here now the Maitreya's ornament for the Mahayana Sutra states that intelligent practice in a place which is accessible. Accessible is we already talked earlier. That's the easy access, so that necessities such as food and clothing may be readily obtained. So that is what is meant by. And then here now, making sure that all those necessities are obtained by appropriate means. And it is not something that all those necessities are obtained by wrong livelihood means, then that is not appropriate. It is not a right. So everything should be obtained appropriately, in an appropriate manner.
텔로코로 카투 라리는 현다도 해제데 레녜 주거를 만도 녜녜 지어는 지금 네바니야지 세나는 카투든 선도 엔 대체하면 돼야지 텔라 개첨보 슈위치 가리어서는 맞도 뭐시바죠 그 이마 가죠 데비콜라 我们现在的这个卡拉的这样的个了，就如果了刚才这样就那些时候没把，但是刚才修都修都，这两个别全部颜色，可等着刚修那的讲的嘛的，那我们现在的这个卡拉的啥在的上呢，小给的现在嘛到咖喱的交给没我都，啥东西做个上的没我都老一等都，这两个也
But
是。
then here also, not only just your necessities such as food and clothing may be readily obtained. It's not only that you obtain in an appropriate manner that someone has given you. So actually it is appropriate to when someone gives you the food and so on, you can take it. But then also there's sometimes it becomes obstacles. If you are accepting food from someone whom you do not know, if you're not okay, actually if you have no idea about that person and person that you have never seen in the past, that you do not know that person and who is giving the food, then also sometimes it becomes an obstacle. Because I have a friend who is actually a meditator. So he once told me that sometimes when you accept the food that is offered by the unknown individual, that creates a problem for your practice. So it says it makes you physically discomfort, and it actually prevent you from carry on your practice on a continual basis, because you become very discomfort, feeling a discomfort, physical discomforts.
对，这个所以这就搞这个是，现在中间这样的嘛，他了大主比较厉害，一片把当个这个了，我说4年一把去了，我的等这几个大主等这个是过呢，等这几人了，那这个呢，突然当查见上把去查下个了，对给起来。
So here now, why it is important for us to, have those preconditions, particularly of the easy access, so that necessities such as food and clothing may be readily obtained. Because when we speak about, engaging in practice of serenity, it is not just for a couple of days that you are spending to practice with this a bit for just the serenity will not happen overnight. It requires a long period of time, at least 6 months. And then not only that, but sometimes it takes 7, 8 months and so forth. So therefore, it is important to make sure that you have all those necessities accessible, and it is ready. It can be easily and readily be obtained during those period of time.
对的，他那上是的弄了，现在了说别个主没身边当，这了说吧没那吧那上网说的啊，那上网是个的，但就他刚交别人了，那他相当于那边没有给点到的了，那上网就过来说的啊。
So then, which is accessible, and then is a good place to live, right? The good place to live is to being a good place to live, where there are no wild beasts such as predators, no enemies, etc. So it should be, one should choose a place where it is actually free from those, poisonous animals, in other words, or the predators and so forth.
的，就那呢，基本上把等这个小家生意吧。 아니 저거 담바 던데 셔자서 봐 내서 던데 내서나 아니 레 담보나 아니 내게 가서 치신절로서네 네 손주여서 손도.
So then also, if possible, one should find the place that is visited by the great beings in the past will be really, really, congenial to practice, because sometimes it is said that for we as initial practitioners, if one is able to find such a wonderful place where there is a place that is visited by the great beings in the past, then it is said that the place itself can bless us. We can receive the blessings from the place.
나봐도 겐디지 인제 봐서 이게 드리게 당까지 집에도 마세 타셔서 저부터 제사가 사실 많이 받지 그거야서로.
So then one should always avoid the place where it is a lot of violence has taken place.
ane kesi tanda misun ba se de jinsen la so ba yin me ma yin be tan de ne so yin na yang ba che chön be lo ju mo bo yore so do kesi ne de la ine me ma yin be zen la so ba de kesi ne yo na ane de la sham ji pe de ji ta bo de ji jen de zhou ma xiao jen ne shang bu jiao ne de ta che ge le so do.
So then also here now in the historically, the practitioner who are practicing to achieve in pursuit of achievement of this meditative serenity, there have been a lot of occurrence of these obstacles without choosing an appropriate place, because there are a lot of animals and so on and so forth. It really interfere one's practices, so that will interrupt us. It is so therefore it is important to choose a right place. And then also, if there are some non-humans, if you have a sense of the presence of non-humans, if you sense that, then one, instead of you know uh, doing something towards those non-human, non-beings, non-human, non formless non-human beings, one should generate, instead of doing some kind of wrathful practices, but rather one should extend one's love and compassion towards those beings, which then be able to pacify the minds of those beings as well.
de chi kanje ji yang de yo ro me u dong cha se ji lian da cha se ge ran de ji shang ju yu sen de pan ne se ne shi ge ma de sen de de jie ju ma de kanje yong da jian de ne chu bo yin ba de jian de ju ma de so so le ge me xian san na yang ji se gang le ba jian yu wo de sen ne se ge jian de song du.
So then also that sometime we may think that, well, I'm a practitioner of bodhicitta and followers of the bodhisattvas. It doesn't matter where I stay, and there will be no enemies for me. So this we should not have this kind of mindset. We as an initial practitioner, we should always find a place, a congenial place where we can really undertake one's practice, because sometimes, yeah, this will really become an obstacle. Without choosing a proper place to practice, will really become an obstacle for one's practice.
De chi de ye ne sang wa se de chi da ne me che bi ne me che bi sa yin bi sa sang wa se lo song du.
So then the next is, it says, the being a good place of a ground. So why it is called a good place of a so the being a good piece of ground, in other words, it says. And because in that it does not breed sickness. So you will not, if you have to have some kind of conviction that if I be in such place, and it is clean enough and it's suitable enough, so that I will be free from sickness during my practice,
De
during
chi
the period of my practice. Sorry.
de la de no ta da la de no ye da no no so de ni sa da chu ma zhe ba da ni sa wa da zhong mo ma zhe sa ma yin ge de ba song du a sa rue nyang ba ni chu ma zhe ba da sa ma zhe ba ma yin ba song du.
So then also sometimes it is called the place where one is dueling may not be appropriate place, and it's not it will not become a favorable condition for your practices. Uh, Rather, it becomes an obstacle for you. And then also the appropriate weather that is suitable for oneself is also important.
Da tu su pe ne ga chen bu shu ji de da nga zhen de ba le de ge chu chu me zhe ge se ge me nga su pe ne na den de de chang de sa ka xie la chang yo ye ni chu ka xie de pe de ji dang de lu ne pe chu se ren zi sa la de ne chang yo ye ba zhou ge ne de nga su long ba mo bo ye de ke su chu ka xie de pe de chu zha bo de jian wu dang de ge sang de den de nga su pe no la chen de se ge yo ma de da chu de jiang bo ka rin ba da chu de chu bo ka rin ba de ha go de kian za de ngo ne ga ye sa wa.
So it is, it's very important. Here now in the United States, the water readings, mostly the water readings are all, purified water. So there's no such water, as long as the water that is purified, then we drink this water. and it's not something that becomes the obstacle for one's practice. It doesn't. I don't think it's going to be obstacle. But in Tibet, we have although that's the same water from the same region. I mean the the water from the same region, but then the differences of this waters, the source of this waters, some waters will become favorable for one's health and one's body, but some of them are not. So therefore, and the practitioners who are the meditators, they're assessed. Someone who is assessing the meditators, they would actually carry the water, even though the water is there are drinkable water nearby the meditator's place. The assistants would always carry the water, but it is well-known water for the practitioners to sustain their body, will not create an obstacle for their body and so forth. They carried a big container of water from a very far place to the practitioners. So this is something very, very important. But in Tibet, although there is no technology, there's no such science of analyzing the water quality, but the people naturally know that this is the water that is suited for one's body, and this is the kind of water that's not really suitable for one's body and so forth.
치설에 되니 단대발지 코안이지 방저서는 가서 약간의 지라 인가게 절로랑 가서 커가세는 바네 베트 샤델 페샤죠 페샤선데 깨라요랑 가서 반 인가 니마레 지라 온디서 지는 제메서 오래 내줘 봐시 원인이야 되니 던데 되서 던데 지라 페드로서는 권유
그래서 당국자 통마야 군안이 총발했어요.
네, 그 gemba 때도 총바 말이에요. 셴바 때에 총바 재미 때도 다알나 로리치 고모 컨트레스 지테는 고모 지도 저게 나가지 지테고 데도가 셴보 지메서 가서 아시안 지메서 그래요. 그 때도 총바 예 그쇼래다.
맞죠.
데도가 가서 야시 주도 사던데 지라 아니 졸로로 커서 봐는 도네 코로노 데코노 방만에 던데 제소세도. 창고세 나가서 창계 아리세는 뭐 양지마기 라마 자청 수지 창고세 들려도 될 펜더스.
대페지 아니
베트 샤데chen.
빈제니 자르바.
빈제니 같은 펜더스.
맞죠. rum시에 남에 소인데.
말이 가서 넘 받지 봐.
let's. 어본다.
니 말에 니가 주로.
Yeah. So there are two individuals that I know, and they were previously it is their brothers. The elder brother was a pretty good merchant. He used to do the business, but then later on, they have renounced all those worldly activities, and then went to retreat. That's just by renouncing everything and leaving everything behind, and then went to retreat. And not only that, just two of them just retreating, but also relying on a very authentic teacher. It's a great Nyingma teacher, that belongs to the Nyingma orders. And so now later on, I have heard that both of them have become a really, really, great practitioners.
던지질다 피게 대니만만자다 같이 쉬어지면서 뭐 다르다리 제치 자치 잔이도이나 던지질랑 아데비가라 맞소기 넘바기 부들라 추천해서 그 넘바셔나서 쉬어져래 존나스네 신코로 신나코로 코치 첨부 쉬어져래 될 추천해서 사치 이 사치기 부들을 주부 청소지야래 대디가라 나제사 진도도 주부되는 쉬어듯이 주부들한테 주부되는 가서들 받다디 넘바 코로나 연락 사신 자디 주부로 코로나 넘바야 카운트시 되는 쉬어듯이
맞죠.
대디가라 제는 될 거디 가서에는 취기사네 공부하면서做了사 대대가 대주선이 따비가라 디 추마체네 공부做인사로 당하진 하고 되딩아 cancer 두부데 저때 그런 사치 슈정 슈여리 두부 베데 렘바소리 슈리시
Also,
이제서는 개고마저도 추기 나는 고마저사 하서서 된주지부 담바지가 하서니다 사마트 된제도
so later on, I myself has actually witnessed. I have seen this one of the practitioners. Later, it was around 81 and 82, 1981 and 82, and living in a very narrow cave next to the hot spring. There's a very beautiful hot spring nearby my hometown, and it's a close, around that hot springs, there's one cave, kind of narrow cave. But the cave, so when I saw that cave, it's kind of wet. It's not really dry. It's a good cave where you can live there. But it is said that he has been living there for a very long time to practice. And so much so that it says that he later on passed away in that cave because of the place where it is not really appropriate place for him to practice, because the place it remains wet throughout the year. It's not dry at all.
gemba de la gomba has zocha ko gemba ge on mo ndise ko gomba zobe kala chedan lomba kono bede me lon tore da lomba shen da nga zo lomba de mi chile zona se chile zonka se go but hina kono gi lomba chino lo meso gi hina kono japa go ko se gore japa inu so na hina se ngo kono se tentu gi hina zo yo
So there are actually the brothers. I forgot to mention the brothers, two brothers' names. Their names. The first one is Ongdu, and the second one is Jingmi. So, so they actually practice in a very different places, where the place is a very dense, and sometimes they engage in the practice, choosing the dense forest. And there's a forest nearby, close in my own hometown. It's a very dense forest, very thick jungle it is. So they have, engaged in practice by choosing those different places.
gemba de golo shuchama shumu de jema ngasa ya jaga le tsa de gwan ba da go gemba gomba zobe kala pe meme yi ton de chang yu ji de mar gomba zobe kala krong ge tan lo to tan paru de la gomba zobe ti se de ka ne gomba zo sa gomba zo na ha ta chi so ko so mele men de chama ka men sa de ro so ni ngata tan chodan shu de ya sa ro i ji mi ji chodan shu ya shu go men do ta je sa nge de ka de che nga so je le ha mo go ma zo ta ga ra ma pho po me ta tong she na pe shen na ro 간제 공 개코로 공부 조비기 뒤세데 로토는 간에 자데 하다 짓을 해서사 단다 좀 막하디 페이지 단다는 텐슈도 해저다 가서 너무 쿠바로 친 고면시 그 간제에 나가 제일 하고 마스
Elder brother, before he passed away, he already knew that the date and the day of his demised, or his passing away, the date and the day of his death, and he already wrote down on his notebook by saying that this is the time and this is the day or date that I will be passing away. Sorry, and then, but then because he practiced entirely by himself, with no companions nearby, no assistants, and it is to say that according to the letter that they found later, it has been 7 days since he passed away. They found the body, but the body was still fresh. There's no odors, or there's no sign of decaying the bodies and so forth. But body remains so fresh. So then at that time, the people who were actually taking care of the body did not know that, have no idea of Tudam. They do not know that he's being in the Tudam. So actually he is remaining in Tudam at that time. that when you are remaining in Tukdam, that does not necessarily that one should just being in a meditative posture and sitting in a meditative position. That doesn't require. Even when you are laying down without decaying one's body and remaining fresh with no orders and so forth, can possibly be in a Tukdam state.
나 간제 게 하고 서질 된득이 주부 담바 대인가 대 간제 사주 메트는 하스 공부 사주다 트레이딩 미션에 아니 하스 공부 줘봐대 나 년년도 하고 단단 가지고 다디 된득 털어 쇼버 성이 손을 레고 대디다 주부 담바 지나 코로나 가래 나나마도 내레지 최대 저거리 지 제거 생에도 쇼핑에도 시사권을 여 말와.
So now I really knew those two beings are really, really brothers, a really good practitioner. But then they passed away. Their untimely death was caused by inappropriate place and a place that is not really suitable or favorable for their practices and the body to sustain their body and so forth. So which is really great loss for the many of us who would be the followers of those great beings, but we have not been able to see that at the time.
그래서 최근에 신내 두비 내스 개말이다 얘나요 다와다 로도 창대서 되는 임비가라 근데 스탠 거에 뺏게 쳐버려도.
So even when one is not engaging in practice of this meditative serenity, but even if you are doing some sort of retreat for approximation and so forth, you should always, it is very important to find a right place, the place that is suitable for one's practice. It's something that is very important.
제가 사상하지. 다 수준도 따와 팀베 조상와 신내 두비가라 아니 지 라니 수준 상만 이거 봐마지 수준 팀베게 아니 상요 옛날에 이 마코 딘디게 신내 두고이나 니래 메뉴와 말 손래 메뉴와서도 아니 따와티나 강 마모냐도 제나 야와요도 수준도 따와티나.
Then it says offers good grounds and good companions, right? Good grounds and then good companions. So good companions is, now it is to say that if one is determined to engage in the practice of this meditative serenity, and one should at least have 3 companions together. I mean, not necessarily being in a one place, but nearby, as the companions. But all of them should have impeccable moral ground. It should have sound morality.
단다시네 가트르면 단질로와 나기 지부 담바테니 코로니 찍고전에 이런 것들 쉬비가라 강에 가르쳐가 하고 되게 바체데 온데 쇼바로 왔다. 또 조도 따와 침바도는 요네 강에 지체나 내려서 지어로 베드 소소로 또 하자지면도 와.
So we should not really make the early decisions of being oneself with no companions, and adopting a solitary retreat all by oneself without anybody's notice. This should not be done for us as initial practitioners that I talked about earlier. Those 2 brothers, they have been separated, they are practicing separately and in different places, but we do not know what kind of obstacles they may have faced during their lifetime. But we know that the untimely death is caused by, inappropriate place and waters and so forth.
되지. 조상하지. 뉴모주어 몸보 매진 츠모 추타충에 레바덴바지 거래 손도아 맞소 레바덴바 생이디 강원 시내 조사기 내달라.
So then and has the requisites for comfortable yogic practice. So then it's so then it should have a very less noise. In other words, with no noise at all is the best thing is, no noise. Here it says the being well situated in as much as there are not many people or the beings about in the day, but a very little noise at night.
다니 미고래 담마말 속에 된준 슈첨보여서 달러 조점도 세모들 가서 추도 추러도 다는 속에 로바트는 추쇼로 안에 건다 추든 로바드 발노스야 말면서 맞 변해나 좀바 옛날에 로바 옛날에 추간 거 건다 쇼로 가도 건다 좀 치게 쉬우죠래 도발 게면도 디노는 나린 제시 제단은 추도 추러 치다 추니가도 세모 다중하다.
So then also it's also mentioned in the text by saying that the noise is not only the noise of animal, but also there shouldn't be. You should stay a place where it is free from the noise of river or the waterfalls and so on. But in Tibet, because there are a lot of waters, it makes a very loud noise, especially at night when everything becomes very silent, but you hear the noise of the water very far shore. So therefore, the noise is not only refers to the noise of animal, but also the water or noise of the river and the waterfalls and so on. Oh, let's listen. And also, and then also the noise of, particularly the animal noise of the dog's noise. But in Tibet, when you choose the place where you can practice, isolation practice or the solitary practice, but the nomad dogs are everywhere. So they make a lot of noise. So it will also become an interruption for your practice. So let's take 10 minutes.
Dete karsa nyamon mege dinzen la soba ge emba goya da gonda ene chede chegi tanda emba goya jesa karsa na shene de samande de dare se do shene ge gasha so cheshu ji de dati yin da do shu ji de goya do karsa ta kusin bo se do.
That's all. So one of the main obstacle of the practice of meditative serenity is the sound, the noise. In other words, the noise that really interfere achieve the practice of meditative serenity. So therefore, choosing a place where it is free of noise. Now, the very quiet place is something that is very important to become a place as a suitable place for practice of meditative serenity. So this is relying on the preconditions of the meditative serenities, which requires 6 attributes, or the 5 attributes, and then it's actually summarized in the Mahayana ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. It says the intelligent practice in the place which is accessible is a good place to live, offers good ground and good companions, and as a required requisites for comfortable yogic practice. So these are the conditions that requires what we call the external conditions. So now, from now, it's from now on, it will be, you know, it will discuss, this will then teach on, it will be teaching on what kind of quality or the condition that is needed from oneself, the individual who's actually engaging in this practice.
되지. 다 랑 참고 세고려 가르쳐는 시에송 소하지. 다 되바 충원 단지 가이는 되바 충원데 니바들 되바 충원에 추걸어 소바 잠볼은 잠보 망볼은 매차 차보면 봐오 손도아.
So then here, the next quality that is necessary for oneself to have is having a little desire, right? Having little desire is the next one. And so here now it says, you do not strongly crave more or the better robes or etc.
되지. 다 추걸어 소바 세딩 가서 인지 미지 라션 줄로 거기에 줘 말와. 선리지나 다 그런다 사회로 소발라 지 몽보당 아니 첼레게 바들이야나 야 텔라체비 차센체 아니 차센 영어야 강에 몽보 채용해지어라.
So here now it just said the robes, referring to the monk's robe, but now is for us who are not a renunciates, one should be, having a little desire for one's clothing. We should not have excessive, clothing, because this will also become an obstacle. But you will have, once you have more things with you, then you always have a distractions of attachment and so on.
되지. 다니 손바 초시바네 손도 추걸어 소바 녀모 짱 예베 다도 초시바오 손도 먼저 파비 리지를 내봐서야 돼. 배치된 인사래요.
So then the next is being content. So being content is you're always content to have even a poorest robes. In other words, even the poorest clothing.
뭐저데 타님은 제된들 추고스는 제도 아니면 산적이 때문에 중국급이 걸라 대이 거다 대세기 걸라 가서만 가서 저 사람이 캠보지 손도 된다고는도 손비 걸라 뭐저데 출신에 때 러시아게 대전정도 지레도 아니면 산제 중국급이 걸라 뭐저 된지 지자데 지체네 아니 봐 메티네만 러시아ጆ데 지레도 그때 인지미지 때 타니데 러시아게 대지고지를 미네 배제도 비서한테 government도 세다 된다고래도.
So here now, when you look at this, it says you are always content to have even the poorest robes. Again, referring to the monks, right? The monk's robe, because this is why because during the Buddha's time, when the Buddha gives the teachings, normally his followers, the disciples, are the renunciates. So it refers purely to those. The practitioner, the followers of the Buddha, who are the renunciates. But now, it should not be a really renunciate. I was once told by one of the teacher by saying, now it is during the Buddha's time, because the Buddha's time, most of the followers of the renunciates. But now we should not really stick to this word, the robes, rather so the clothing would be better.
되지. 맞아 대진이 연락전에 몇든 대충 출신도 야부 쇼도라 해더라. 더바시도 초시 맞은 데는 초시 봐서도 야부 거 봐서는 지금 소소를 단체적인 지리였어요. 니저 저거지나 대당아 대 지리였어요. 초시 봐서 거기다. 내가 가서 카투시나 초시 봐서도 야부 입에 쉐반지 거로라. 되는 매제와지. 근데 소소를 여바장지 대 지바.
So contentment, it's something that is suggested for the practitioners. Whatever the belongings that you may have, the one may have, should be contented by whatever the necessities or belongings that one may have. So that is what is meant by contented, or you should be satisfied by what you have, or happy by what you have, in other words.
You was a choice bachi. And the Shawa Mumbo Yunso, Tai Shiba de Shere, Shawa Mumbo Yunso Pambane, Nyotsula Sobi, Shawa Nyamba Tang, Chimba Tang Road Shunga Tang, Hachang Ji Sheba Tang, Me Sheba Tang, Kazi, Kamaziwala Soba, Yunso Pamba, or Sondo. I should not do it like a Pangum Chegrawada.
So then here it says completely giving up many activities for the practitioners of the meditative serenity, which is you give up base activities such as buying and selling. You also abandon excessive socializing with householders and renunciates, as well as pursuits such as medicine and astrology.
Then no Dendoa, and the Sola Super Shaw Yamba sitting Yamba the Judgment. Sola Super Shaw Yamba Sene, Sola Chedan Shaw Yamba and Bitch about the Chairman. That's only Tijinga to get Sachet on Santa Rina, Yambaski Marwa. That Judan you told better song at the Mongo Goton Jedi Risitabat Yambaroana. Madonna Natundino the song Yawa de Jimasha, Dino, Korkatut and Jeda, Sola Super Shaw Yamba Rida. Tenji. And the Chimba the Shao Tiju, Shena Dungi Sona, and the Chimba in the Rojo in the Say in the Patula, Tobo in the Kesha that they don't know. Drum Karsa, Shena Marwa.
No. So, the engine now comes to Java Yamba scam into Java scare shadow. That's a Java scare shadow. So now here, if it is not necessary that when we speak about, activities such as buying and selling or something that is interruption, it does not necessarily means those are really a negative deed. This is not what it meant by. It is not appropriate for the individual who's actually engaging in the practice of meditative serenity. That is what is meant by. And so then also, of course, then some selling and buying may become a wrong deeds because you deceive someone and buying things by deceiving someone and selling things to someone, deceiving them and charging excessively that shouldn't be charged, that excessive, cost for such object that is to be sold to others and so forth. And these are the wrong deeds, but not necessarily the sellings and buyings are wrong deeds. But then also one should also abandon, socializing with householders, because if you socialize with them, then it takes your time, and then you remain in, chattering with them and talking with them. It is a waste of time. So therefore, those are all need to be recognized as an interference of one's practice of meditative serenity.
Shene Drubiding, Taji Law, Shene Drinking, you met Jim Hemba in a Zijang in a Mojang in a teaching Konatina, that do Jigirina, Lutong, Chegro, Shene Drubiding. They must say teaching also in Hembachi, Hatter in Hembato in a any daughters in Hembato in a Hemba Katitona, and the Chushet on Shaw Mumbadi also Pomba saying it. They go to pay kitchen in Tadua, so because now you go bit and dollar.
So, and here, this, when engaging in practice meditative serenity, the practitioner must also abandon the practice, the pursuit such of medicine and astrology. Even if one is physician or one is astrologist, one must not engage in those activities. Even though you're professionally, you're proficient in medicine and astrology, but you should not engage in such practice at the time of, during the time of the practice of meditative serenity. So such qualities are required not only for someone who is actually engaging in practice of meditative serenity, but also requires for the individual who is actually, engaging in a retreat. You're doing a retreat for a month or weeks or so on and so forth. During one's retreat, having a little desire, being contented, completely giving up many activities are required not only for the practice of meditative serenity alone, but all kind of retreat practices, the Dharma retreat, in other words.
다 나바리 수천 용수 말 수천 넘버 다바네 손도 소다다 상선지 담바니가라 랑신 제비 칸나 마토이 어지 제 메레와타 바메베 제나 젠베 제베 최전의 시조와 시바오 어선도.
So then the fifth is the pure ethical discipline. Pure ethical discipline, you do not violate the precepts, doing deeds that are wrong by nature or wrong by prohibition, right? Either in the case of vows of individual liberation or in the case of bodhisattva's vow. If you do violate them through carelessness, you restore them promptly with regret in accordance with the teachings.
되지. 인지 민지대 맞아. 소다의 상승지 신의 중에는 소다 당대의 상승이 당대에 비춰봐 요마로와. 얘나야 그런 게 개시 다 신의 중에 예매될 소다 단단 가서 어디 첨부 시작제 집 첨부도 보지기만 상주 선별 협업 시작된 내용에 제나 다라로와.
So again here, not necessarily the someone who is engaging in practice of meditative serenity possess those vows of individual liberations or the bodhisattva's vows and so on. But without having the vows, one can also engage in practice of meditative serenity. But here, where it says it's liberating individual liberation and so on, because it is referring to the Dharma practitioners, particularly the Mahayana Dharma practitioners.
나바도 신의 중에 남발이 싫어바치니 소나 류가 잠마 쉬우지 땡에다가 배체 단다 된적이 싫어바들 라키가 말했어도 쉬우지 때 제가 장세기를 했는데 다까지 시코로 습관을 메토드 집에도 신화생년 주되게 리스트 먼저한테 신의 강조 중인데 레레도 하시네서는데
So in fact, it is said that the non-Buddhist practitioners of meditative serenity, they really led their way in a very pure way of life. In other words, it says, particularly the practitioners, the Brahmin practitioners, they said all of those required, little desire, contented, and completely giving the activities are observed purely with no, residues, completely pure, and so they have such a advanced way of engaging in practice of meditative serenity.
되지. 다 소다의 상승 제바의 지체와면도 배나가서 매겨 주게 놓게니 배나 소 제바생에 랑신지 칸나 마토와레 아니 제대 개노이나 랑신지 칸나 마토와데 제베 칸나 마토 인가로와 인산의 던트지 네바지 유야나야 배나가서 레통보아지 중에지나 지 신의 두게 생에지나 던트기 매겨와 질레 내등에지나 매겨와 지봉이 추천의 취지에서 계속 던트된 게 차와이나 아니 샤동전의 실제적으로 손도와
So do not violate precepts, doing deeds that are wrong by nature or the wrong by prohibitions, right? So now the wrong by nature is something that if you were to think about the non-virtuous, the 10 non-virtuous actions, the actions of killing, the act of killing, is a wrong by nature. It is particularly for the renunciates, it is wrong by nature, also by prohibitions. The act of killing is wrong by nature and also by prohibitions for the renunciates.
이제 밤에 버튼 리치 다시 봐오지. 다 되발로서베 나도 용서 빵바네. 손데 주바테레. 빵바네. 되발노나 레 서바다 제레 서바다 친와다. 여래 친와라서베 체디 님이 당지 버지. 당연도 도와라서 니심이 님이 나 건에 레 곰바스 가서 건에 산세 야나 거의 거의 뭐 이도 명화 탕진 집이 이도 뭐 탕진 집이 최제 메타바테 녜바테다 탕제다 다림보 메토바 제원주나 다 데라 지시 하바차발라소바 제냥도 강베 데피나도 탕지 빵바 샤오 데다네 고네 바바당 곰레 고네 바비 곰바시바다 곰바타 시바테 제바네 녜토제 살레 시바 샤오 손도
So the sixth is completely getting rid of thoughts of desire, etc. Right? Which is in the case of desire. In the case of desire, contemplate there are disadvantages in this lifetime, such as they are leading to being killed or imprisoned, as well. There are disadvantages for the future, such as they are leading to the rebirth in the miserable realms, and alternatively eliminate all thoughts of desire and such by meditating with the thought that everything in cyclic existence, pleasant or unpleasant, is ephemeral and impermanent. Since it is certain that I will shortly be separated from all of these things, why should I crave for them? I've explained these points according to the purport of Kamalashila's second stages of meditations. You should learn more about them from Asanga's Sharvaka level.
단 데발라 수비 님이 가려야 세서나 데페는 가서 데파와세데 가서 베는 대항할 로셔 비차는 가서 데파와세 그러와 대항할 이동하다 이 간제 대항할 차당이 온게 아니 센데이 소 쇼바다 베데 다전의 치발로 최산시나 센데를 강에 들지 여러와 아스가잖아 동보.
So now here for the beings who are taken rebirth in this desire realms, right? Such as we ourselves. We are the beings of the desire realms. Why we are called the beings of the desire realms is because we have a desire for 5 desire objects, right? It is due to the because of these 5 desire objects, we have attachment, aversion, and so forth. With regard to this aversion and attachment are generated with regard to the five desire objects, and it is because of that then we put ourselves in trouble in problematic situations, such as even killing or taking the life of others, even as well as oneself, one's own life, or one will be imprisoned. All this, negative situations or the problematic situations coming into being due to having a desire for the 5 desire objects.
다 저하시만 계시셨나다 내가 차당 용원게 내 저하시만 연로로 알아서 가정 같은 데가 이게 생이 되게 자이 지진 요사로데 차당 용용에 차버세데 내가 알아 차병원게래 아니 당원세데 될 차병원게 당원래네 아니 연로로 알아서 봐 이미 되다 뭐에 내치상으로 와.
So we desire beings within the desire realms are, will take a rebirth in the lower realms due to the attachment and aversion with regard to the 5 desire objects. It is really true because, everything that problematic situation coming into being is because of our own way of thinking, our own way of projecting onto external objects, such as 5 desire objects, and generating attachment and aversion towards such 5 desire objects, which then leads oneself to the state of lower realms.
진짜 가르쳐는 변한 데발로서 변나도 인스방그 가르쳐는 신에서에 대해서는 고민형 줄이에요. Kong Communion Jusena, Senesa the Toba, Kong Communion Jutaba Tenore, Kong Communion Juana, Dela Katijan, Katisagoro, and Debala, but in Damba Nagiton, Nikomasho, Sharagina Jensenare, Chibai Markaje, and Debit Noto Yonsango to Chening Chigi, and Katu, Seneduna Jutu Mari, Metua Yenzana, Dan Matson Deba Yenzana, and Nimitaga, Nimikanda Tagusana, D. Jensen Santon, Nimitagre, swamp, and that.
So here now, someone who has already abandoned this, you know, the desire or the attachment of desirums, then it actually equalizes the beings, the qualities, the mental qualities, the beings of the superior realms. And so now such beings who are in the superior realms, again here, cannot practice in meditative serenity. But the suitable beings who can practice the meditative serenity is the desire realms. So therefore, again, we need to find the faults of the desires, having too much desire towards object or 5 desire objects and so forth, and abandoning those 5 desire attachment to those 5 desire objects, and with this abandonment of the 5 attachment and aversion with regard to the 5 desire objects will then enables one to achieve the serenity of one's mind.
Dan debi nimi dan tsende de josh ma gang de ji yana ne nga chu be na zu yi de wa de la ka re chen cha go yare yi de mo wa ji la ka re chen dang go yare se ne ke she ngeng na ni cha dang se na nga chu ge so so ge lo yi ta dan je le ma do ni pi ge ge gang le cha dan je se yi de ke ji zang ji jo wa do de ge je le sa sa na ji dong ya ra ni ya ke ji zang je re ma ta ba re 인집이 체체지를 텔라 단지 가르치는 거를 다 대다 배나 가서지를 통소나 대다 좋아 진는 좋아 명예지를 봐 로기 탐는 데도 그러.
So now why we should have such a desire towards the desired object or the object that we normally think as a desirable object, and then why should we have aversion towards object that is something that we dislike and so forth, right? So one should not have such, because whether it is desired object or the undesirable object or the undesirable object, whether it's the pleasant or the unpleasant, are all ephemeral. This doesn't last long and impermanence. So since it is certain that all will shortly be separated from all of these things, and then why should we care for them? Why should we have a desire for them? So this is how we should always think and practice.
Tendri ke ju de jo ro ge bi che chen ba kan shi chen la ni nga ri mo to ba ko dan de ka ka cha re sha yin san nga dan dan ne ka ma cha mu to ka re re sa ne ji ze san do ne ni mi da da ji so do.
So this is a
mo cha de so so ge ka ran lo de gan ja na san to ne jo ta ko mo mo shu ro ta de.
So this is always advises us to really to turn inward instead of looking elsewhere, but try to turn inward and then gain experiential knowledge by turning one's mind inward and so forth. So therefore, think about, since all those pleasant or unpleasant, desirable or undesirable objects are all nature of impermanent, they are transitory. So why should I have attachment towards that we have? So this is the reason, a very good reason to think and contemplate to reduce one's desire and aversions, desire and aversions, attachment and aversion. Sorry.
다 간제 신내 중에 내가 신내 두고 산에 편바 돈에 쟁에 지에서나 아니 되게 다 데뷔 조달라 소바다라 차바이 도타데라 아니 님이 됐다 그거도 그때서 강가 신내 초된 것에 신내 두어라 가사되게 찾아로.
So if one is serious practitioner of meditative serenity, and this are the most important contemplations, such as completely getting rid of thoughts of desire, and finding a faults of having too much desires towards 5 desire objects and so forth.
당가 저기 당체 방거를 세대 니 방바기 방바타 방바기 말이야 롱월라 까 투거를 간장 롱월라 디원도 메토상이 롱월라 까 투거와.
So here now, when we are saying completely getting rid of the thoughts of desire, so at this point, although we are not being able to seize the root of these delusions or the desires at this point, but what is important is what is meant by completely getting rid of thoughts of desire is to don't let yourself, remaining under the control or under the domination of this desire.
내 고니 바비 손바나 이시여긴 텔레 제바치 니 셰데고야나 니살을 다시 손도아.
So therefore it says, I will explain these points according to the purport of Kamalachila's second stages of meditations. You should learn more about them from the Sanghas, Sharvaka levels.
다 대답 다 간정 가서 신 알레 단도 참아서 아마 됐어도 대답이 최초부터 땡인지 정보 사드 제바당 제신 문양바 네발라 네바당 고네 공대 필요 지진제 네 뒤바때 셰바도 수진 다바당 되발에 이미스 다와당 팀비 유라 네바 조인노 손도 계시 템비시네.
So then it says these 6 topics over the key causes and conditions for newly developing good concentrations, for maintaining and existing concentrations without deteriorations, and for heightening your concentrations. In particular, the most important ones are good ethical disciplines, seeing desire as advantages, and dwelling in an appropriate areas. So Geshe Domdomba said.
당가 추천 다바세디 거 신내데 신나티모에 다디 추천 다바세디 디지 중에 선지 소나야 지 메게 지봉나 소바게 라니 다바지 거바지 대 거베도는 데비 수달라 소발라 차파 니 롱월 반통에 지 예바도 거도 치바도 다 마타르지 송도아.
So the practitioner of meditative serenity requires pure ethical disciplines as a basis, and then following that, then abandoning the desire with regard to the 5 desire objects.
다 계시 템비시네 지 랑자 명아 코넬리 냥 인사 명아 코나 제베 땡인지 제 문제 바데错了那把没被两把烟的错呢，那些把主了说把烟弄送的这样。
So then here's the Geshe Domdromba said, we think that the fault lies only in our personal instructions. As we then seek only personal instructions, we're unable to attain concentrations. This is the result of not abiding under these conditions.
변화가 좀 되는지 시작하잖아. 당에 신의 조직의 명하도 우치기 토나로라 지금 매매도 가래는 같은 거 가져와 있는 거 유행민도세는 근데 러드에 대지고 말해스. 아니 신에게错了那不没把也你两个的送到신에게 단지 촉 주도 주된 내가 좀 인비를 명아 지고라 때는 지금 말해错되는 게 바로 개천벌에 손에 된다.
So then here, there are practitioners who may say that I'm unable to attain, regardless of how much practice I may do in pursuit of attainment of meditative serenity, I'm unable to do it. It is because of not being able to on relying on the preconditions for the meditative serenity. So one should make sure that one is actually relying and following the preconditions of meditative serenity. This lawyer is
아니
lawyer
솔로 tempo 중앙스 아니 게마자 아니 할로 아지바 가나
라서
예야 파셰 동보 지네 파셰 동보 지네
다가라 계시 픽셔 되는
나바당 상대지 소선도 인데 고네 동보레 신내네 네발라 소반 려발라 메타신 수춘라 레바 네바 동해라 소바 당도 렘빙안 시젠도 줄라 순주 장나 뉴도 주고 대나 파바 공방에 반제발라 소바 레장 짐발라 소바 고마 고미 주니 임바 때노 시송소 때도 시송소 나로네 소도.
The term conditions refers to the six explained above. Moreover, the first four perfections serve as a precondition for the faith meditative stabilizations. Kamalashila's first stages of meditation states, you quickly accomplish serenity when you disregard the desire for positions and such, keep good ethical disciplines, have dispositions to readily tolerate sufferings, and joyously persevere. That being the case, then the sources such as the Sherpa Sutra unraveling the intended meanings teaches that generosity and other perfections are cause of successively high perfections.
되게 가르치는 세상은 아니 가서 다다 가서 거기서 보면 가서 카투시행에는 가서 다다 파시 타만이 시기요. 파시 타만이 시기 파시 동방 가보대 파시 동방 가보세네 파시 집어대세나 아니 마마마데 심심이 줄이에서 일단에 파시 말에 파시 동보 집어대 상대지 소리 다니가는 소세링이는 로고 이제도 손으로.
So now we are on the last two we are on the instructions of the last two perfections, right? So all those practice of perfections, beginning from generosity to all the way to the six perfections, all of them become a cause that give rise to the next perfections, generosity, discipline, and so on and so forth. In other words, all in brief, those all the above four the professions, the practice of professions, can become a causes for the meditative serenity.
다들 거기 봐봐 예 파신 동부지대 son도 신내네 네발로 소면 네발 나타와 생에테 신바자 수진 레바 네바지 동해 당들렘비 당랭이 저바지 아니 수진도 줘봐라 순주 장문나 녀도 줘버려 세디 파신 동부지대 건지 제소아.
So here now the Kamalashala's first stages of meditation states very clearly, in a very orderly manner, of the practice of how this practice of four perfections become a cause of practice, where it says you quickly accomplish serenity when you disregard the desire for positions and such, and keep good ethical disciplines, have a dispositions to readily tolerate sufferings, joyous perseverance. That being the case, then sources such as the Sutra unraveling the intended meanings teaches the generosity and other perfections are the causes of the successively high perfections.
안되지. 다른 하마 심이 지르살아요디. 아니 이제비 다다 토마디게 심이 하신 것도 정해들어니 신내매비 차그려 된적겠지 말이야. 손을 맡을 거는 신내 터정이 여 초으로 와. 다다 그런 제형이 찾는 말은 반드시 지어야나. 상대 이 파신 코로나 근데 파신 하마 이 줄로 시지레마도 이제비 파신 걸로 파신 조된데 요와. 여 초으로.
So here now it is, in general, it talks about how each of those perfections become a cause of another. It's because it is in general, but that's not necessarily each and every one, of, for instance, other words, just to clarify that, just by engaging in practice of generosity, the individual who is actually engaging in practice of generosity can undertake the practice of all 6 perfections, simultaneously with the practice of generosity.
가수 텔레 코데와시나 아니 하말레 파신 심마심마데 아니 냥레 하바토비 되니 봐 냥레 이름밖에 시행이나
So it is it is not something that you are newly accomplishing that. It is just to the perfecting, in order to perfect one's practice of one perfections, then the other perfection become a causes to perfect one's the next the practice of perfections.
양지 저바도 생산들 제니 진이 도세디 아니 진비 파신이나 랑기 데버집이 아니 수준 파신지 라바 예르세는 데버집이 예초르세는 생산 제초르 다양한 저바 쉬우지 좀 반제는 저바 저 말만 전에 단단디디 좀더 men경이 지게시나 마마마마 심심이 진이 임바세디 아니 베네 진비 파신이 데버집이 수준 파신 데버집이 아니 전주 저바 주변 데버집이세는 파신 라랑기 아니 전 하바도 So
we can also say that those the order of those perfections, beginning from the perfection of generosity, ethical discipline, and so on and so forth. If you really look at and think deeply, becomes the first becomes a causes of the second one, and the second becomes a causes for the third becomes a causes for the fourth, and so forth. But this can also be, seen if you really carefully look at that.
ni taba ni druban doba na je shine je yangla gang so nyensa ne sombi jusong la soba beba shinde geche wo song de ter dong.
So then here it says Traditional lamp for the path to enlightenment, right? Bodhipada, Pradipa states, when you lack the elements of serenity, even if you meditate assiduously, you will not achieve concentrations, even in thousands of years. Therefore, it says, therefore, it is very important for those who sincerely wish to achieve the concentrations of serenity and insight to work on the elements of preconditions for serenity, such as the 13 which are set forth in Asanga's Sharvaka level.
되게 가르타지는 단지 가서 신에게 초주 대노는 동방하고 대전로대 간도 주변에서 대전 연다래 그래서 내가제 신에들 중에는 다 차진 가르거래 소소기 마주는 비게될 나도 시에거면은 얘한테 신에 유튜브 말에서 소소소 네바명에 소마자지 아니 신에 들어와라 차진되는데 거래다 그러 처마 통화 니 신에 유튜브를 초드는 된 거래다 세 뜻이 제대 전이기 년에 제가 제 마투나 아니 시험을 소리지 마저하지 내가 저기 대리마트는 상이 저한테마다 저하시면 간제야 농에 손에 네가 될 슈트 너도마도 나가요 말어.
So here now, if one were to practice, or by having a genuine wish to engage in the practice of serenity, and then one should not forget of those preconditions, the preconditions for meditative serenity that we mentioned earlier, because it is clearly mentioned that you have to rely on those preconditions for the meditative serenity. Without reliance upon such preconditions, it is not possible for one to, practice successfully the meditative serenity.
想去让这个手机踏进的送多，原来强做的马上完了，老东朝了，就让干练节的刚才那样，现在这个嘛的送多。
So here, in the lamp of the audacious lamp of the path to enlightenment, stated very clearly that when you lack these elements of serenity, referring to the preconditions, then even if you meditate and assiduously, you will not achieve concentrations even in the thousands of years.
我是现在结果了，他讲那类的，我是穷山的说个去，你们这给上去教育那样，去哪一个的去托人说呢？我说，可是刚的开始说咋说啊？哪一我的去说呢？可是就那样，等到有嘛的说去多啊，因此的说个去，马上听过去么是嘛的那样，你去没给去上去没那嘛的那样，哪一个的去托过的，两个同意两个的多啊。
So here, not only that such is required for the preconditions are required for the practice of meditative serenity, in our day-to-day practice also requires preconditions. Not necessarily all the 6 preconditions, but one's practice should not be done on the basis of, rendering the intentions, in other words. So one should have a fixed, pure intention of engaging in practice, not just reciting some kind of, recitations and so forth, or chantings and so forth. Just your mind is wandering somewhere else and you're actually practicing. This is not going to be a right practice.
啊，对些，他等于是点不过吧，开心不去，他点这些，他点了点的，现在搞啥？我说现在就错点吧，点了点的，现在刚比最，刚比现在就比菜些的，实际你把这个，他点的交易，啊，对些，他们说跟，他们说，对些那这都是些，他们，呢，等到想去浪就准备送吧，那一个等于是点不去嘛，因为亲戚了，那我说一个。这马上的这下不多因啥呢？呢，这用的是那送吧也，呢，现在娘子呢，现在来的那好多娘子呢，点你送的这下拉送这的那就娘子来呢，那人不么多吧，做不上去就搞不能不去，今天就淘宝下去，点淘宝了，点那学本了嘛那就，行了当嘛做上那路去，大给路确实了，确实了，完了把这没把事呢，马上等这一天呢，马上你干这个去的。
So now let's do our dedications here by thinking about that. Without having a proper achievement of proper meditative concentrations, it is not possible for us to, advance our spiritual realizations. So it is therefore by receiving such teachings, may I be able to, establish and realize so the realization of meditative serenity, followed by the practice of insight, and with the integrated practice of meditative serenity and insight. But before long, may I achieve the state of enlightenment for myself and that of all other sentient beings. And may whatever the practice, Dharma practice I may do, will become a path, will become a spiritual path. And the spiritual path that I achieved will free of obstacles and so forth. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas bless me to be able to do this.
Logi jini sabi gewa de non zhawa gyula kabe don cheba jizun lo san chaba yi tenbi nyingbo rin leje shu so ji beje shu ji men do zhang re zhao ne je nye de jeba de san je jin do mi de be wa yi 若愿能到心老学佛修，结我更多养到他们， Jemi Chuju Bela No Shuji, Sada Nanje Yode Razo, Doji Changi Gobo Nyudo Sho Yedon Guru Minje Lago No Ya Da Ya Mi, Dene Rindo Bele Sonin, Kada Yamba Kashi Sabade, Lobe Mare Gedon Jawano, Nanjin Jaye Ombo Dajuji, Tema Sunbe Sera Gundo Yang, Jambe Yanje Zebe Jezone, Dembe Rimba Gezan Nanje Jo, Nian Zhu Bie Jie Na Nian Shi Xiu, Rang Jie Jie Du Bie Lang Jie Ni, Xiu Zhang Zi Bie Zhang Yue Tao Ge Jie, Zhu Yue Yi Jie Min Ba Si Xie Ni, Jia Yue Dan Ba Yi Ren Zhen Ju Ji, Dan Ba Ren Qin Qiu Ge Ma Jia Ba, Qia Jiang Niang Ba Ju Bie Xiu Die Ni, 念着全部一路就我一，遍地对对自我写不出，再见教育民众成的列住上求那就人别长，他的那就一了别的心，教育怎么人都终究尽，老总主编听见主席经。 ye jen si je ma da me me ge se ra gu do ja ye ma ba ye na da la da je wa ma ju ji gang ze te ba chu la ju je si je ru la ze ba de ye ze tu de na je da du zhu xie ji zha xie jiang zi shu 有就解就是那面古色老天津，那个城内说着结巴的，老张对别这面扫索的，若也面色大多面就解，看着上月过于心慌说，偏当的我马的永远的，现在在我的叫做也。 小别身体不多，点酒精，江边八月接大青毛，云多上坡边洋的人的，得到根据就是道路去，夜晚的到堂街绕着梦，就从西边叫我堂街，我刚到秋冬俺把的。 我先个月早晚的跟着，从不是老多么。哎呀，对切，天就。